The house on Rookfield Road had no number. Not anymore. It had been 114 once. The outline of the numeral still lingered on the peeling blue paint beside the door. 3 pale ghosts where brass had shielded the wood from decades of weather. But the numbers themselves were gone, and so were the neighbors. That's what the listing said, anyway. Rural property, recently vacated, price to sell. I'm telling you this because if you ever find yourself driving through the back roads outside of Ashford, and your GPS loses signal just as the fog rolls in off the fields, and you see a narrow lane marked Rookfield, with a sign that looks older than the trees around it, you need to keep driving. Don't turn, don't slow down, and if you hear knocking from the trunk, you especially don't stop. My name is Daniel Harker. I host a small podcast called Vacant. It's about abandoned places, why people leave, what they leave behind, and sometimes what stays. The house on Rookfield Road was supposed to be my season finale. I'd heard about it from a listener email. No return address, no name, just a subject line. It is not empty. The body of the message was shorter. The Rookfield house. They say it's abandoned. It isn't. If you want something real, go there after dark. Attached was a photo, a 2-story farmhouse at the end of a crooked gravel drive, swallowed by fields and a sagging tree line. One upstairs window glowed faintly orange. The listing said the power had been cut 2 years ago. I drove out on a Friday. It was late October, the sky bleeding out by the time I passed the last petrol station. The attendant had looked at me oddly when I mentioned Rookfield Road. Thought that place burned, he'd said. It didn't. He'd hesitated. No, I suppose not. That should have been my cue. Instead, I kept going. The road narrowed to 1 lane. Trees arched overhead, branches knitting together like fingers. My headlights carved a pale tunnel through the mist. The GPS flickered and froze. No signal, no service. I told myself that was good, authentic, immersive. The gravel drive appeared suddenly on my left. The sign was barely visible. Rookfield, the paint cracked and flaking, one corner hanging loose. I turned in. The crunch of gravel beneath my tires was the last ordinary sound I would hear that night. The house loomed ahead, darker than the sky behind it. 2 stories, wide porch, windows like blind eyes, all except one. Right side, a faint orange glow. I cut the engine. Silence swallowed the world. No insects, no wind, just the soft ticking of my cooling car. I checked the time on my recorder. 10:17 p.m. Okay, I said into the mic, forcing a lightness I didn't feel. I'm at the Rookfield property. There is, actually, a light on upstairs. I stepped out. The air smelled wrong. Not like rot, not like damp wood. Like pennies. Metallic. Thick. The porch steps creaked under my weight. The front door stood slightly ajar. I didn't remember seeing that in the photo. I knocked. 3 sharp raps. The sound echoed too long, as if the house were hollow. Hello? I called. Anyone here? The orange glow upstairs flickered, then steadied. I pushed the door open. The entryway was narrow and lined with peeling wallpaper patterned with tiny blue flowers. My flashlight beam cut through floating dust motes. The house was furnished. That wasn't in the listing. A coat rack stood by the door. A scarf hung from one peg, stiff with age. Shoes sat neatly on a mat, men's work boots, small trainers, a pair of women's flats. A family of 3. Or they had been. Hello? I tried again. My voice sounded muffled, swallowed. I stepped inside fully. The door drifted closed behind me with a soft click. I didn't hear it latch. But when I tried it later, it wouldn't open. The living room lay to the left. A sofa, a television with rabbit ear antennas, a coffee table covered in old magazines dated 3 years back. A mug sat on the table. Steam curled from it. I stared at it for a long time. No, I whispered. I stepped closer. Thin and ghostly. I touched the ceramic. Warm, very warm. Footsteps creaked above me, slow, measured, back and forth, from one side of the upstairs hall to the other. I forced a laugh into the recorder. Okay, someone's here. The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed down again. Then, a child's voice, soft, almost curious. Daddy? My blood turned to ice. My throat closed. Hello? The voice came again, closer to the top of the stairs. Daddy, you came back. The stairwell was dark, except for that faint orange glow spilling from the right-hand room upstairs. I swallowed. I'm not your dad, I said gently. I'm just... The light flickered. The temperature plummeted. The voice changed, deeper, layered. No, it said. And then from somewhere behind me in the living room, you're not. I spun around. The living room was empty. The mug still steamed, but the sofa, the cushions were indented, as if someone had just stood up. A wet footprint marked the wooden floor beside it. Another, leading toward the hall, toward me. Each step glistened dark in my flashlight beam. Drip, drip, drip. From the ceiling above, something warm struck my cheek. I wiped it away. My fingers came back red. I didn't want to look up. I did. The ceiling above the living room bulged downward, paint cracking in a spreading spiderweb. A dark stain blossomed outward, thick and shining. It pulsed, once, twice, then split open, and something fell. It hit the floor with a meaty thud. I stumbled back, choking on the copper stench. It was a man, or what had once been one. Limbs twisted at impossible angles. Skin pale and stretched too tight across a body that looked boneless. His mouth hung open, jaw unhinged wider than humanly possible. His eyes, they were gone. In their place were smooth, dark hollows. He twitched, once. Then his head snapped toward me with a crack like breaking wood. "Daddy," he croaked in that child's voice. I ran. The front door wouldn't open. I wrenched at the handle until my palms burned. Locked. No visible lock. Just sealed. Behind me, the thing dragged itself across the floor, bones grinding like gravel. "You left us," it gurgled. The stairs. I had to go upstairs, toward the light. I don't know why I thought that was safer. Maybe because at least I could see that glow. I took the steps 2 at a time. Halfway up, something grabbed my ankle. Cold fingers, slick and impossibly strong. I kicked wildly, connecting with something soft. A shriek erupted below me, not from the man-thing, but from everywhere at once. From the walls, the ceiling, the floorboards. The house screamed. I tore free and stumbled onto the landing. The orange-lit door stood ajar at the end of the hall. The other doors were closed. But as I ran past them, they began to knock. From the inside, dozens of fists pounding in unison. "Let us out! Let us out! Let us out!" I reached the glowing room and threw myself inside. The door slammed shut behind me. Silence. The room was small. A child's bedroom. Walls painted pale yellow. Glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. A nightlight plugged into the wall cast the orange glow. On the bed sat a little girl. 7, maybe 8. White, nightgown stained dark at the hem. She looked up at me with wide, shining eyes. "You're not Daddy," she said softly. "No," I whispered. She tilted her head. "You smell like outside." I backed toward the window. It was boarded up from the outside. "Where are your parents?" I asked. She smiled. Her mouth stretched too wide. "They're everywhere." The knocking began again. Closer. On this door now. The wood bowed inward with each hit. The girl slid off the bed. Her feet didn't touch the floor. She drifted toward me. "You shouldn't have come," she said gently. Her face split down the middle. Not a metaphor, skin tearing from forehead to chin like paper being ripped in half. Inside was darkness, moving darkness, shapes writhing where organs should be, hands pressed against the inside of her skin. Hands. The door burst open. They poured in. From the hall, from the walls, from the ceiling itself, figures half-formed, translucent, all with those same empty eye sockets. The man from downstairs dragged himself through them, body bending and snapping as he crawled. The little girl's skin peeled away entirely, falling to the floor like discarded clothing. What stood before me was a column of writhing limbs and faces fused together, all whispering at once. "You left. You locked us in. You watched us burn." Images slammed into my head, fire racing up staircases, smoke choking narrow halls, a man outside on the lawn, holding a petrol can, listening to screams. The house had not been abandoned. It had been sealed, with them inside, and something had answered their dying, something that needed a shape, a memory, a family. The column lunged. I dove aside as it smashed into the wall, splintering wood, with pain. I scrambled for anything at all. My recorder, still clutched in my hand. The red light blinked steadily. Recording. "I didn't do this," I shouted. "I'm not him." The faces turned toward me in unison. For a moment, they hesitated. "You came back," they whispered. "No," I gasped. But he didn't. Silence rippled through them. Confusion, rage, grief. The man-thing dragged itself closer. "Daddy," it rasped. "You want him," I said desperately. "Not me." The house trembled. The boards over the window cracked. Outside, the fog thickened, swirling unnaturally. "So go get him." The writhing mass pulsed. Then every head snapped toward the window, toward the outside, where, beyond the boards, headlights flared. A car had pulled into the drive. I don't know how I knew, but I knew who it was. The petrol station attendant. Older now, hair gray, face lined. He stepped out slowly, staring at the house like a man approaching a grave. "I'm sorry," he whispered to himself. The boards tore free from the window, as if ripped by invisible hands. The entity surged toward the opening. I flattened myself against the wall as it streamed past me, like smoke and limbs and teeth. Down the stairs, through the front door. The night erupted in screams. Not from the house, from outside. I staggered to the landing. Below, through the open doorway, I saw them swarm him. He didn't run. He just stood there, tears carving lines down his cheeks. "I didn't mean," he began. They took him apart, not like animals, like memory, pulling pieces of him free, not flesh, but moments. Every second he had chosen himself over them. His body collapsed inward, shrinking, folding, until there was nothing left but a dark stain soaking into the gravel. The swarm hovered above it, then slowly turned back toward the house, toward me. I ran again, down the stairs, out the door. The gravel drive stretched ahead. My car waited at the end. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe. I threw myself inside and slammed the door. The engine roared to life on the first try. In the rearview mirror, the house stood silent, dark. No glow in the window, no movement. I reversed too fast, tires skidding on gravel, then shot down the lane without headlights until I reached the main road. Only when I hit the motorway did I realize my recorder was still running, and beneath my ragged breaths, there were other voices. Layered, whispering, "You came back," over and over. I never released that episode. I told my listeners the audio corrupted, which is true. Every time I try to upload it, The file changes. New sounds appear. Knocking, scratching, and sometimes a child's voice asking very softly, "Daddy?" I moved flats last month. Different city, different county. I don't give out my address, but 3 nights ago, there was a knock on my door at 10:17 p.m. 3 sharp raps. I froze. It came again. Slow. Patient. I checked the peephole. No one there. When I looked down, there was a wet footprint on my welcome mat, and from the other side of the door, a familiar voice whispered, "You smell like outside." If you're listening to this, if this ever airs, and you hear knocking behind don't ignore it, because they don't want the house anymore. They want the one who came back, and this time, I think they know where I live.